We at the Other Side of Hell podcast are not therapists, doctors, or counselors. We're just two guys who've been through hell and come out the other side. Please be aware, we may talk about drinking and drugging in detail. Anyone struggling with addiction may find this triggering. Our goal is to share our stories, explore our struggles, and connect with others through our experience. Remember, we are not alone. There is hope, and together we can get better.
What's up, world? I'm Willie.
And I'm Cameron.
Welcome to the Other Side of Hell podcast.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, Cameron.
How you feeling?
I like your shirt.
Thanks. It's a brainwashed official shirt.
Yeah. For those who are just listening, Cameron is wearing Brainwash official merch.
It says
today.
caffeine.
It's a super cool shirt too, man. The coffee cup skull head with the beans. And
Yeah, maybe people don't know this, but our late friend Martin designed this shirt.
oh yeah. Yeah.
So I like that Billy's
Still
made it
rocking.
available.
Yeah.
You can get
Appreciate
this.
that, Billy.
Check it out at
Brainwash
brainwashcoffeeco.com.
Coffee. Nice little plug there.
Well,
Right? What do you think about mine here?
Yeah, that's okay. Anyways, let's move on.
I'm wearing, if you can't see, a Valor Fitness.
Green Valor.
Green
Green
Valor.
is so different color for you.
Jim, the CEO and founder of Valor Fitness, sent me this shirt because he likes my tattoos. And for those of you who are just listening, I do have tattoos.
They're not very likable.
Speaking of
Whoa.
the Other Side of Hell podcast, welcome, Cameron.
Oh, let's do
And
the show.
Let's do
Yeah.
this show. We have a wonderful war story. I love it when we get locals that we've been around each other, seen each other, we recognize each other, but find each other on Instagram. Melissa is from our area. She actually lives in Clearfield, not too far away. She puts a lot of references of our area in her story, but she's crushing it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I seen a post of hers that showed all of her mugshots, and she had mentioned her sobriety time, and I thought, that's freaking awesome. I want to get her story. And she was obliged to give it, and it was kind of neat because recently she had put it out into the universe that she wanted to start telling her story again and working with women again and getting more involved in her recovery. And then I was compelled to reach out to her, got her story. We got an awesome topic. And now we're in studio getting to shoot this episode to talk about what?
What have we learned? Willie, we've been doing this recovery thing for a minute now, and it seems like the further down the road we get, the more information we obtain.
Yeah. What have we learned in recovery?
I
What
think
has recovery taught us?
it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
It's not only good for me to think about all the things that I've learned, just because it makes me reflect on all that I've gained since I decided to turn it over and get sober.
Yeah. How much we've grown.
But it also can be helpful to maybe somebody in those early stages and think about what there is to gain. There's so much more to gain from a program of recovery than you're going to lose. You're going to lose the ability to drink. You're going to lose the ability to do drugs. You're going to lose the ability to lie, cheat, steal.
Successfully.
Yeah, very good point. And the things that we gain are valuable.
Yeah, for sure, man. The things that we learn, I really appreciate how you put that, what we lose when we decide to get sober. One of the biggest things that I lost was the desire to drink over my problems, the desire to hide my life, desire to stay disconnected. I don't have that huge desire anymore. It creeps in, but I've learned a lot of things about myself, and I'm very grateful for these little moments of clarity. I don't think I could handle the clarity that I have now the first year that I was sober. I just mentally I couldn't comprehend the amount of willingness that I have in my life today, or the amount of self-respect that I have for myself today. But these are things that I learned over several years of trying to become a little bit better today than I was yesterday. You know, and I don't know about you, but we've had a show, maybe two, of the Other Side of Hell podcast where we've mentioned perfectionism and being perfect. And I think that's one of those things that holds a lot of people back in moving forward in self-development, whether it be sobriety or just self-development in general. Because I kind of think that sobriety is a form of self-development.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
You know, but that not doing it perfectly thing has held a lot of people back, including myself. And I know that you struggle with it.
I'm the worst.
I don't know if you're the worst, but you're worse.
I just said I was the worst.
Out of the two of us at this table for sure, but I don't know.
I am perfect. I am perfect about being a perfectionist.
I don't know about. Yeah, you are the worst, but that's okay because
Thank you.
what have you learned? Like let's talk about that a little bit, you know, because we took some notes before the show as we always do, and not being perfect was one of the things that we learned. We can not have to be perfect all the time since we've been in sobriety.
Perfectionism stopped me from doing so many things. Like I thought that if I couldn't do it perfectly, I just shouldn't do it. And it prevented me from starting so many things because I just thought that I should just know how to do things.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to know like where this idea came from, right? But I really, in my case, like, let's just say I'm going to go shoot hoops with somebody, right? And I go to the basketball court and clearly like you're better at it than I am. I want to know how come I'm not as good as you.
Right.
And I want to like, it makes me not want to do it because I'm not as good as you are. So I'll just stop doing it. And that's just one tiny example of sort of the way that my thinking used to work. And now, like, I know that I don't have to do it perfectly. And one of the things that I've learned is to trust the process.
Yeah.
And to really just be okay with like, hey man, like I didn't know how to be sober either at first.
Right.
And I got better at it as I went, right? And just remembering that things aren't supposed to be smooth, like right out of the gate. Like things will develop over time. I'll get better over time. And that's what I've gained through working a program of recovery. And yeah, I mean, so that's just one example of the many things that I've learned as a result of getting sober, and working a program. What's one of the biggest things you think you gained?
I think, you know, one of the huge things for me is it's okay to change my mind, and it's okay to change my beliefs and let that happen organically. You know, one of the things that held me back from getting sober for so long was this creed that I had made when I was a child, that I'm always going to smoke pot. Always going to smoke pot. I'm always going to be a party guy. You know, that's something.
Is that because that's something you wanted, or just something
when I made it? Yeah. Okay. Like when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and I was running the streets, and I had this image, and I had this, you know, I was running with my gang and a certain facade about myself. You know, I loved the energy of the streets, and I loved selling drugs and doing all those things. And, you know, I decided, maybe many of us decided, we're always going to smoke pot. I'm always going to smoke pot. That was a huge thing for me. Or I'm never going to trust the cops. Never. Or, you know, I had these negative beliefs that when I would start to think like, I should quit smoking weed. It's like fucking me up, and like I should stop disrespecting the law. No, fucker. You know, this thing in the back of my head would be like, then you're a fucking liar,
right?
Because when you were 15, you swore that you would always smoke pot.
Well, right. I mean, caution against using those words, always and never, right?
Yeah. And being able to break through that, one of the other things, like, I'm always going to be fat.
Yeah.
Always,
Yeah.
These beliefs that at the time seemed to suit me or serve me. It's okay to change that. And whatever God you may have, if it's not working, it's okay to change that belief from believing in God to not believing in God, to not believing in God to believing in God. It's okay to change how you feel about your employment. It's okay to change how you feel about the neighborhood you're in, or it's okay for me to change my mind, to say I like one thing today and then process through that and go, you know what? I don't like that.
Yeah. Or even what you want in your future, right? Like, that's something you can change. Like,
yeah.
Maybe the life that I thought that I wanted isn't what I really want.
Yeah. Because, have you ever had the experience in your life or seen people or had that idea that it's not okay to change your mind? Like, you've made up your mind, you must stick to that. Was that anything for you ever?
Yeah. I think that after I got sober, right, I had this idea that I was going to be a producer, and
a film producer,
okay, and move out of state to either New York or LA. And the idea with that was also that I didn't necessarily want a family, right? And then I met my wife, and she absolutely wanted a family, and I was like, well, I don't know, that's like a thing, like, it's not really what I want. But the relationship that I had with her just felt so organic.
Right.
It just felt like it happened without even trying, and it just naturally sort of developed into this what it is now. And all of a sudden I decided that I did want a family, and I had wanted one in the past, so it wasn't a completely foreign idea for me. But I just sort of moved past that notion and moved into this one thing that I could control without having a partner, right?
Yeah.
So being able to just say, like, well, I can control this, I'll go after this because I don't need anybody else to be involved. And then when my wife came into the picture, I started thinking about, like, okay, well, maybe I do want a family, like, and maybe I don't need to move to LA, and maybe I don't need to do that. And maybe there's an opportunity for me within the industry, here locally. And it's been kind of weird. I think it's been great. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love my wife. I love my child. It has absolutely awakened things in me that I did not know existed. But I think the problem is that, if there is a problem, the thinking is that because I didn't do that, I must have given up on that.
Okay.
And I must have settled for this, right?
You must have settled.
I must have settled, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the case. Like, I think that if I would have continued to go after that and denied myself how I was actually thinking and said, you know what, like, I know it seems like I want a family now, but I said I was going to go do this. So bye, and just left that situation behind to enter into a life that I thought I wanted. It's quite possible that I'd be miserable,
Could be, yeah.
doing that stuff. So it's hard to say. Like, I don't feel at all like I gave up on something and settled for this. Like, I feel like what I wanted changed.
Yeah.
And that was okay.
Yep. Yeah.
And it still takes work, and it still, is difficult. But I can't imagine it going any other way now.
Yeah. I get that.
So for me, that's one example of a big drastic change of my mind.
Yeah, for sure, man. And being able to, like, take responsibility for that. And, that's one of the other things that we've learned. And as you're sharing, and I'm looking at this list of things that we've learned in sobriety or in recovery or in life, I wonder what part of that it is. You know, does it come with age that all of a sudden I've learned to be okay with mistakes, or is it a result of sobriety? Because and the thing is I don't really know. Like let's take mistakes for example. You know, like changing our mind, making mistakes, accepting not being perfect. Those things I've dealt with and talked to people that are much older than I am, that are just now getting sober. And much older, I mean 20, 30 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. And they're late 60s, 70s, that are just getting sober. And it doesn't seem like they've learned how to accept mistakes like we have. Or they're still struggling with letting go of the past.
Sure.
Or
okay.
Having the what ifs and if onlys going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I ask myself, like, is it the sobriety that I've learned these things in? Or is it my age? Or, you know, where do these learning things come from? And it's like, learning to make mistakes comes from, I think, willing to go out and try things. And that's something else that I feel like I didn't really know how to do anything prior to sobriety. Mm. Like I was just kind of like going through motions of things.
Sure.
Like I knew how to use people well enough to stay alive.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to provide anything for myself responsibly and on purpose. Mm-hmm. You know, like I always knew that if I got into a bind bad enough, I could always use my mom for food or money.
Right.
I could always end up going to jail where I knew I would be taken care of ultimately. There was always this kind of a back door on self-sufficiency. But coming into sobriety, like all of a sudden now I'm like experimenting with, like, I don't want to pay my bills with the money I just earned from the job that I got. Well, what do I want to do with that money? And I go through and I start thinking about, like, well, what would you rather spend your fucking money on? If you don't want to spend it on your bills, what do you want to spend your money on? And after a little bit of time, I found that, like, I kind of enjoy buying groceries for my fridge.
Right.
Yeah, I go in and fill up my refrigerator with the money that I earn. And I kind of enjoy, you know, seeing my lights turn on and that kind of stuff. Where before I knew like the reason that I didn't want to pay my bills is because I used people to get those things for free.
Right.
And I used all of my money to get the drugs and alcohol to change the way that I felt about myself and the world around me. And so being in sobriety, as well as becoming more mature in age, getting older, kind of built this understanding of what it is I'm trying to do with fulfilling my life and how to do that on a more consistent basis, I guess. Like, okay, I don't, you know, it gets to a point where I ask myself, well, what do you want to do with your money if you don't want to pay your light bill? Well, do you want to go fucking eat it?
Right.
Do you want to go out to eat and spend your light bill money on food? Do you want to relapse? Do you want to take your light bill money and go fucking relapse? Do you want to take your light bill money and go buy a pair of shoes? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you want to do with it? And that's a learning process of like all this stuff kind of put together, and all of a sudden we learn that, wow, I kind of like being able to take care of myself and my family, my child, my children, you know, kind of stuff. So it's kind of neat to think about, you know. I always like thinking about what came first or whatever, if you will. Like,
you're a why guy.
Yeah. Like, how the fuck does this work?
Well, what it made me realize is, you know, I don't know if it was, well, I mean, for me it was sobriety, but I don't know if it happens with age or getting sober or recovery or whatever the case is. Like, I know that something had to happen to change the way that I thought, to change the way that I viewed the world, and to change my mindset to where I wasn't a victim and I was empowered to believe that I could get sober. And for me, that came with sobriety, and recovery and a treatment program. But I think that because as we talk about this stuff, like everybody sort of deals with this stuff. This isn't exclusive only to people that have suffered with drugs and alcohol. I think that everybody in their life can find themselves, miserable at their job or really stuck in this life that they never asked for, or believing in something that they don't know why they believe in it. And so these things are also things that can apply to people in those situations as well. Like, for example, something that we see in this area, or at least I see, is a lot of people who have grown up in a specific religion who eventually, like, they do everything that religion has told them to do in order to find happiness, and then they get to a certain point in their lives and realize they're not happy.
Yeah.
And then they start questioning things, and then they seek information, and then they educate themselves, and then they find out for themselves what is going to make them happy.
Right.
And then they end up completely doing a 180 on their life, right? Because they remained open, and they decided that they could change their mind about what they wanted.
Yeah, huge.
And so I just think it's important to make that distinction that, a lot of people deal with this stuff, and that everybody has something to gain from seeking information and continuing to work on themselves. And I think that was something else too that I realized after going through a treatment program. Is I remember being in treatment and working on some of the book work that they had us working on, and thinking everybody would benefit from doing this. Like,
Right.
I'm going through it and I have a drug and alcohol problem, but this is stuff that would benefit anybody.
Yeah.
And really wanting to, like, spread that to everybody.
Yeah. Here, let me help you.
You do a second step, and you do a second step.
You need my help. I can see how
Right.
sick you are.
I mean, really. But one of the biggest things for me too is when we talk about taking responsibility, was taking responsibility for my part in things, because like I said, I was just such in like this sort of victim mentality where the world didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I was sort of just looking at things like I had all these goals and ambitions and dreams when I was young, and they just didn't pan out. And fuck the world for doing that to me.
Yeah.
And then being able to really look at that and say, okay, well, what's my part in that? And being honest with myself and saying, well, I didn't do anything to chase after that stuff.
Yeah. I was just waiting by the mailbox.
I mean, literally, like, I just thought something was going to happen,
Yeah.
And again, like, I don't necessarily know where this thinking came from. Like, I just know that this is, for whatever reason, this is the way that I thought. And so what I realized in sobriety is that I'm not special. Like, if I want those things, I'm going to have to do the things that everybody else has to do in order to get those things.
Yeah.
Like, those things are not going to be handed to me. And recovery and sobriety was one of those things. Like, I just thought sobriety would happen. If I had all the information, I thought that it would happen. And
have a sufficient will to just stop.
if I have the information, why would I continue to do?
Yeah.
Why would I continue to do it? And that proved not to be the case, obviously. And so again, it was one of those situations where I was able to say, okay, like, I guess I just have to do the work.
Yeah.
And I've been able to apply that to a lot of things in my life. Like, I guess I just have to do the work. Like, if I'm at work and I want the promotion, I guess I have to do the work to get that.
Yep.
Like if I want a new house and I want a new living space, or I want, a guitar or some sort of material possession, like I guess I'm going to have to figure out a way to save the money or whatever it is. Like I've got to figure out how to do. I can't just want things and expect them to happen.
Right.
And I know it might sound silly, but that's what my thinking was.
Yeah.
Like
I get it.
It really was. So that for me was a big one.
Yeah. Where's the golden bar? They're supposed to, where's the pot of gold?
I exist, so therefore I should get
Therefore
things.
I deserve.
Right.
Yeah. And as you were sharing that, I was thinking, like a lot of this stuff, the work, when you talk about work, some of these things are hard, being honest, which is something we learned how to do in sobriety. And you mentioned that, being honest is hard because there's an emotional reaction and almost automatic assumption that I will be rejected or judged based on what's about to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And there's a big learning point with all of that I can be honest about my mistakes and the way that I've hurt other people, and I will still not get rejected. Therefore, I do not need other people's approval based on a lie, right? And I learned all that in sobriety. Like it's a huge place to be. Like I know that as a contractor and as a business owner, I don't have to know everything and how to do all of it. Where in the past I thought, I can't own a business. I can't be a business owner. I can't have employees. I don't know how to do that. It's hard. It's scary. I don't have the information. I don't have the skill. I don't have the self-trust to rely on just me for my income. And in sobriety through like talking about fucked up behaviors with a sponsor, it taught me that I'm able to do things that are uncomfortable, because I'll be honest, man, doing a 4-step was fucking uncomfortable. Like walking through a 4-step, listing my resentments and my fears, and then of course my sex and harm inventory, putting down on paper the character defects that were involved with a lot of my sexual misbehavior and thoughts was embarrassing. And I was completely afraid that I would be rejected, which is something that I feared my entire life. And now, because I was able to do that and it was well received from another person, I know that most people are going to meet me on the broad highway with open arms. Mm-hmm. Very, very few people will reject me because of my mistakes. I've tested the waters, right? And I've learned that I can be 100% completely honest about what I consider my mistakes, and I will live through it. And not only will I live through it, I will grow because of it. Mm-hmm. And I learned all that over here. I learned all that on this side of the table in sobriety. And I learned that I can be uncomfortable and I can be embarrassed and I don't have to drink over it, which is something that I never knew before, because I thought that those deep, intense emotions were going to kill me. Yeah. Somehow I was going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or want to die if I felt those deep, intense emotions. So yeah, I mean, and I don't know. Like,
well,
there's just a lot.
What I'm thinking is that, like, I remember how empowering it was to finally get sober, and the momentum that it gave me to take action towards other things, because I never thought that I would be. I never thought that I would be an alcoholic or an addict. I don't know who necessarily thinks that that's something that they're going to do, but I never thought that I would be an addict and alcoholic. And then when I was just deep in it, I never thought that I would get out. Mm-hmm. And then when I finally kind of completely surrendered and approached the whole situation with enough humility to accept that it was true for me, that I was an alcoholic and an addict, and that my thinking was broken, and that it was a good idea if I take suggestions from other people who had been there before me. When I finally accepted that and started to move towards the solution, and was able to understand that I don't always get to do everything that I want to do, and that sometimes I'm going to have to do a lot of things that I don't want to do. And what I get from doing those things that I don't want to do is so much more valuable than just always wanting to do or doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
That I really started to like pick up some momentum and started saying, okay, well, what else can I do? Right? Like, what else have I been wrong about? Like, what else have I dismissed as impossible that I might actually be able to do? And I remember like going to the gym, and I had like 50 pounds I wanted to lose, like that I had put on towards the end of my drinking career. And the gym had become a place for me where I was just very, very aware of all my issues. In fact, I had started like drinking before I went to the gym, just so I started to feel comfortable in that environment, because I was just so self-conscious.
Yeah.
But I would go to the gym in sobriety and just think to myself as I'm, sweaty after 20 minutes on the elliptical, and kind of having those old ideas met with new ideas, where it would be like, I would have this thinking of like, oh, I'm sure they're over there like looking at me,
Right.
and saying, oh man, like he's got a lot of work to do. But I would meet that with this new idea of, well, I bet that they have never had to get over a serious drug problem, and I have. So if I can do that, I can do this.
Yeah.
And if I can do that and I can do this mentality followed me into so many different things that I then took on. Once I left a treatment center and just moved through my life from that point forward. The reality is that those people probably didn't give a fuck about me. And like, I know that now.
Or in all honesty, like you yourself were quietly encouraging you.
Right.
Which is more likely.
Yeah.
Which is far more likely.
Very true.
Than the other.
They could have been like, "Oh, go, dude.
Yeah, good for you."
Yeah, good for you. Glad you're here." But yeah, I mean, so I guess what my point is that the empowerment that I got from getting sober followed me into so many other aspects of my life that I became willing to apply all those same principles to every aspect of my life. Okay, am I teachable in this situation? Am I still willing to learn? Am I willing to do it when I don't want to do it? Am I willing to push past the voice of resistance? And am I willing to be humble enough to ask questions of people who have been there before me?
Yeah.
And all those were things that I could take into my career, my relationship, and just my relationships, not only with my wife, but my relationships with individuals in general. And even like relationships with friends who I had known previously. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm like a perfect dude or that I know everything. I just know that everything that I've gained from getting sober and working a program of recovery has been absolutely valuable to who I am today as a person. And who I am today as a person is just so much better than the way I used to live my life. Like, I like to think that I'm dependable now. I am somebody that can be looked up to, and
knowledgeable,
right? And people can come to me when they have questions. I listen a lot more. I'm more empathetic, and there's a lot of things that I can really say that are honest, facts about myself that I don't know that I could have said before recovery.
Damn. Good share.
Thanks, man.
It kind of just brings it all around to, as we go through this stuff, more is revealed. And that's something that I know is coming, right? There's always going to be a little bit more revealed of what I'm capable of, what I need to work on, where I'm slacking, where I'm thriving. When we put ourselves out there and we ask for clarity like we do in recovery, because I think that's whether you take an actual third step where you turn your will and your life over to the care of a God or a process, or just asking for clarity and, making your life better. And that starts to happen as it has for a lot of us. The universe or God or the inner self, wherever that answer comes from, takes that it takes it very seriously and says, okay, if you want to really know yourself, I will reveal more. Mm-hmm. And it always seems like it, as far as I can tell, right when I need it. Not when I want it.
Right.
Not when it's convenient. Mm-hmm. Not when I'm ready for it. When I need it. And I learned that through all this stuff, I can do these things willingly because I know the payoff of the other side. And, having a brotherhood and a fellowship and a group of people that suffer like I do, that have answers for the things that I go through, has been just instrumental in my growth. And I'm so grateful for that, and it's something that Melissa touches on quite a bit in her story is having these second chances and third chances, and having people in her life where help her, that have helped her grow and stay in touch with. And so as she was sharing her story with me, I couldn't help but realize, as for her, she has learned a lot about herself, about her world, about her capabilities, about what she has to offer, and did all those things once she decided to finally start giving sobriety a chance.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. This topic, I feel like this shoot went really fast. So must have been a good topic. So, yeah, what do you say, Cameron? Should we?
Yeah, let's do it. It's a good one.
Yeah. Without further ado, here is Melissa's Warstory.
This week's War Story is brought to you by Brainwashed Coffee. Brainwashed Coffee is a damn good coffee with a damn good cause. 50% of all proceeds go back into the recovery community, which makes it a perfect partner for us here at the Other Side of Hell podcast. With delicious blends like Coffee Commitment, Found a New Freedom, we drink a hell of a lot of it here, and it gives us the energy we need to deliver a quality show. Right now, you can get $5 off your coffee purchase at brainwashedcoffeeco.com using promo code OTHERSIDE. Clean your bean. Brainwashed Coffee. Now, without further ado, here is this week's War Story.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I am a recovered addict, and I definitely have had my fair share of drinking and all the alcoholism, as well as, growing up in my teenage years as well. But my main thing that I struggled with the most was hard drugs. And so I'll just start off by telling you, exactly my childhood growing up was not good at all. Most of us that I've, seen or hear struggle with addiction have not have a nice growing up in their childhood. And, no child deserves to suffer what I had to go through. And so it's hard, to have to realize that I actually went through that, but I have healed a lot of my demons from my past. And so that's really good to be able to open up and share that, as a kid growing up, my parents were not good people at all. I understand now that my mom did the best she could. As far as her husband, I think that he knew all along what the hell he was doing and why he fucking wanted to hurt people. But so I was molested at a very young age. It started at 5, and I was told, if I told anybody, my mom would get killed, I would get killed, and just, people would get hurt. So I was extremely scared to say anything. So I had to hide that, but I didn't feel like I hid it well enough in, like my physical features, as a little girl, people could see something was going on just because of how I acted. And at a young age, I could disassociate myself from my body just because of the bad stuff that was happening to me. That's how I kind of dealt with the bad things happening to me, is just like disassociate. And so I went through all of that, and then at age probably 12, it started. I smoking weed, and then my parents. Well, I don't like to say parents, because my mom and her monster husband moved us to Casper, Wyoming, and I was still pretty young at that time, and that's where it all began for me. Like literally, that small Casper town was at the time was the highest crank capital, because back then it was crank. So I started on that: a bathtub crank, peanut butter crank, lemon drop crank, all that. And at that time it was just sniffing and smoking and drinking a lot, and whatever I could get my hands on, acid. And we did the party thing down there, and I was a troubled teen, in and out of the juvenile hall down there. And we had a standoff with the Casper and Natrona County Casper, the police department for, how long was it? Like 10 plus hours. And, people were that they had to throw tear bombs in that house to get, like breaking windows and drag us all out of there. Underage, and I'm a part of this. And I didn't go to jail at that time, thank God, but I did go back to juvenile hall, and I, just in and out of there. And then from there, at a young age, I experienced going into like a mental psych ward, because just super angry. And this is by the time I'm in my like 15 years old. And so I'm experiencing that side of the world, and like, yeah, I feel like I'm crazy, at that time, but not like that. Going in there, I'm like, wow, this, like it was scary, and it was an eye opener, but I felt like it prepared me for, like, you're gonna see this again. So because I did in my my adulthood after getting sober. And I don't want to sit in the how, like, the nasty stuff too long, but I did my fair share of going in and out of jails. Um, Definitely on my way to prison, but thank God, I found some help to get me to where I needed on the right path. And just a little bit about, so I have my children at, well, I get pregnant at a very young age at 15, and then have my or at 16, excuse me, and then have my baby at the age 16, turned 17 right after, and that was my first son, and his name's David. And um, and so I did grow up a lot from that, and I did stop doing drugs at that time during the pregnancy. But right after the pregnancy, I was starting to drink again, and I was super against the, like, the hard drugs, because I had already experienced that, and I was like, no, 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 no. But then that's when the alcohol rage started, right? And then I'm having my kids, I get married, and I end up having my twins. And this whole time, like, I stopped drinking because I get pregnant, but then right after, breastfeed for a little bit, and then boom, it was right back into drinking, because I was still so against. I'm never doing, hard drug again, like F tweakers. And that was for like 10 years. And then, I don't, I get a divorce. My marriage ain't good, and I'm drinking, and just things aren't good in my life. I'm depressed, crazy. I know I wasn't the best mom. I took care of my kids. I loved them, and I took care of them the best I did. But they've seen me and their dad fighting constantly, and just me drinking, and like having friends over, and just not being a good role model at all. So I get a divorce, and things go completely south from there, and I just start the drinking, like, even got more out of control. And I just remember I was just so hurt and just this dark place of just how my life had been going. And I literally took my children and took them to their dad and said, here, you do it. You be the full-time dad. I'm being the every other weekend mommy. And I literally left, and I it I ended up relapsing onto meth, and then I did it like smoking and like snorting and taking pills and um doing all of it that way. And that about for a year, and then I got introduced to shooting up, and it was all over for there from there. And I went homeless, um, completely homeless. I went MIA. I didn't talk to my children. I didn't talk to any of my family members. I was just running and gunning the street and causing a ruckus. Like, I'm talking about high speed chases to robbing, like houses and just, things that I thought I would never ever be a part of, but I did it, and it was crazy. And, I went through some really hard stuff as a woman, homeless on the street on, dope, and it's not pretty. And it was, I got into, a few relationships to where like I was beaten so bad to where like I've had my jaw broke, my toe broke, my ribs broke, broken nose, almost strangled to death. And it just got crazier and crazier and crazier. And it didn't ever get better. You know what I mean? And that first time that I ever, shot up, I was searching for that first high, and I never found it again. You never will find it again, even if you relapse, because I've had a couple of relapses, that led me straight right back into that insanity, that psychosis, seeing shit, because I got so bad to where it really messed with me mentally. A lot of evil stuff around me, a lot of evil people. Um, it's just, it's all just bad out there. And I didn't, and at that point, with just being out there, like, there was that little light I could feel left in me. You know what I mean? Like, I knew I have children out there. I know that this is not my life, but I just want to die so bad. And I don't know how to get clean or sober, because growing up, I wasn't taught, or I wasn't loved or cared for like a child should be. And so I hid that emotion, I hid that pain, I hid that fear, all of it. So when I finally got sober in 2013, it I was super close to like killing myself, because I just had it. I remember I'm sitting at the Ogden River, and it's cold. It is literally cold. And I went outside. We were like, I can't remember what that. There's a hotel right behind the river. I can't remember what it's called now. It's tore down now. But I just remember I walked out there, and there's a river, and it's freezing cold outside. I have no shoes on. I have no coat on. And I just, my pants and a shirt, and I go out there, and I'm literally sitting by this river, and it's iced over, and it's super cold. And I'm like, I'm just gonna stay here. I'm just gonna freeze to death. Somebody will find my body, and it'll be all done. And that didn't happen. I ended up in jail, and I ended up having a chance to go to the women's retreat house, and I got straight from jail. I went to the women's retreat house, and I remember being in jail for the umpteenth time. Every other time I went into jail, it was, I'm gonna get out, I'm getting high again. Where am I gonna find my next shot? Oh, where's my next cigarette? Where's my next this? But the last time, even my mugshot picture it was different. There was something in my face that was like, from all the other ones, that was like, there's something more for you after this last time. And I believe it, because that's what happened. I went to the women's retreat house, and I tried my best. And it was crazy, because I ended, the first time I went there, I didn't make it the first 30 days. I actually got kicked out. Yeah, I had the 3 write-ups, and was, had that ego going, and that thug, I'm a, hard ass from the streets. And I didn't want to listen to anybody, or, suggestions. But I did get kicked out, but I got a chance. I didn't relapse. I didn't go back. I didn't get kicked out and relapse. I had a chance to get back in there, and then I did, and I was sober coming up on 4 years. I was married at the time, and I did really good for a while. The marriage wasn't good, it really wasn't. I didn't know how to have a marriage, because I just had when I got clean in 2013, the guy that I married actually took me off the street. And so he was a Mongol at the time, and he took me off the streets, and he showed me a way of recovery because he had done recovery. At the time, he obviously wasn't, because he found me on the streets. So, but he introduced me into recovery and the church, and I did lots, and I did really good, and but just that the marriage and not being healthy mentally, I ended up relapsing, and it didn't last long, thank God. I was, running and gunning for about a week, and I was visually seeing. So like I'll back up for a second. Like when I got high, like every time I'd shoot up or get super high and I was up for days, like I literally could, I would like, it was a psychosis to where I would see things like coming out of like, the Green Mile, where that guy is literally sucking out that cancer. And then he blows out that black and all that black particles. Like I could see that coming out of my body, like, and moving on the ground. So like, I don't know, it's crazy, but that's what happened to me. And till this day, I believe that shit was demons. Because the darkness surrounded me and engulfed me, and it was bad. When I relapsed, I literally, it went right back to that, but 10 times worse, it seemed like, because I had been sober for almost 4 years, and coming off of that psychosis and trying to figure out my, like what's going on. But it went back to that real quick. And even the second time I relapsed, it went back to that. And so, but in July, on the 25th, I will have 6 years. And how it's now, like, I lived in Clearfield in a beautiful home, and in a nice neighborhood. When I first got sober, I lived right in the middle of Ogden, off of Ogden Avenue, and like 29th Street. Yeah, and I stayed sober there too, but I also ended up relapsing there too. Just living right in the middle of it all, with all the cops, CSI, people getting shot. Like we finally moved out of there when my fiance, he was getting his son back in his life, and we were finally starting to get overtime, the overnights with them, and a lady actually got shot, a drive-by shooting, drug deal gone bad, right? And an innocent lady sleeping on her couch. And so we're like, yeah, we got to get out of here. So we've been in this house in Clearfield for 5 years now. I own my own, not own, but like I finance my own car, and I almost have it paid off. I have, I've been through multiple jobs, but I've stick with them, and I've learned throughout my years of being sober how to have good work ethic, because I didn't have good work ethic before, especially like when I was using and drinking and stuff and tried to go to work. Yeah, I wasn't a very good worker. So, and I've been blessed multiple times, like my children, it's not all the way 100% with them, but I've been a part of their life. I've had a chance to help my older son, because he started going down that path, and he is actually still in that path, but I've been able to try to help him and guide him and be there for him and share my stories with him. And he definitely knows. And just blessed with my job. I just a little backstory is I was just talking about getting back into like sharing my story and being able to sponsor women, because going through the women's retreat house, that's another gift, a beautiful gift that I've been given, as I've been a part of that, being a live-in manager 2 times there. I've sponsored many women out of there. I went through there the one time, and then I went back and actually did the full 90 days. And so I got the full benefit of doing that, and it really helped me. And then coming back and being able to serve for them. And then that's really helped me a lot, being able to learn that and to teach that. And so, but I was sharing I did a goddess circle recently, and I was sharing with the ladies there that I wanted to get back, be a part of that, and share my story, and be able to sponsor women, through the pandemic and all that. It's, been hard to do like the one-on-one walk a woman through the 12 steps and stuff. But and then after I did that, then I was asked to speak on this podcast. And so I thought that was really cool because I was just talking about it. And then Friday, I found out that I get a $4 raise. And so that's just amazing because this company I've only been just a little over a year. And I've had, that feeling in my heart and in my gut, stick with this company because I love the people I work with. At times it can be hard because it's in a warehouse and I work with all guys. And so it can be like frustrating at times too, but I stuck it out and I'm just like, I wouldn't have been able to do that before. I would quit right away with anything. If like anything I'd ever start, I'd never finish or I'd mess it up because the alcohol or the drugs or whatever that I was, stuck on at the time. And so recovery has taught me a lot. It's taught me how to balance and it's taught me how to even if there, for me in the beginning, I needed help. I needed someone to help me, to show me the way, to show me structure, to show me that there are steps that I can do that actually work and change my life to help me find a higher power and help me find who I truly am. And without like the steps and having a sponsor and having sisterhood and having like-minded people around me, there's no way I would have found it because all I knew was drugs, alcohol, abuse, and just living the hard way. And, so I'm really grateful that God led me to the Women's Retreat House and, showed me that there is definitely a way to stay sober. Like I always say, even though I have relapsed, I always say that relapse does not have to be a part of your recovery. It definitely does not have to. And, so it's just a beautiful thing to be able to share your story and to share with other people, to see the light come on in newcomers' eyes. And I strongly believe that I didn't go through all of what I went through. Even when I was a little girl, I just feel like I didn't go through any of that, for no reason. Like I want to flip it into something positive and help other women and other people that has been struggling through it or is going through it to know that there is a way out of it and that you can heal and you can let all that go, because that was one of the hardest things for me, was to heal my abusers and to forgive them. Like that was super hard. And sometimes I do take that back, but I'm like, yeah, I don't want them to have power over me. No, I ain't taking that shit back. That ain't my cane to hold on to anymore. And I beat it and I went through it and I'm here now. I'm here to, help somebody else, to share my story and like, look, it's okay. It's okay if you struggle with drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. Don't be ashamed. Don't hide it. Like you can get through it with help. When us, that been through it and been through recovery, or people, not everybody needs meetings, not everybody needs a 12-step, not like people have their own different ways that work for them, and I love that, because it has to be different, because not everybody is going to like take the same road. And I really, I'm just grateful to be alive today and to share. I have grandchildren. I just went to the zoo today and spent with my grandchildren and my family, and just living life and still learning and still healing. I still struggle mentally sometimes, and that's okay. And you know what, that's another thing. If you struggle mentally through your recovery, you need to reach out and get help for that as well. And I just want to say thank you for letting me share my story, and I hope that I touch somebody's heart and help somebody with my message. And I just want to continue to fight that good fight and to share my story and help others. So thank you and have a good night.
Yeah, it's so important to remember to help others. You definitely helped us, and definitely I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. So thank you for sharing that story. What do you think?
Thanks, Melissa. It's so interesting when I see people around and then I get to finally hear their story.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, wow.
There's always so much more to the people than yeah, there's just always so much the more depth and like the miracle that we're all here. It's just, it's fucking overwhelming sometimes, you know. So thank you. We love the Women's Retreat House. We miss it over there where it was. For those of you who just listen and don't know, the Women's Retreat House is a nonprofit funded women's retreat house. It's where you can go, like she said, straight from jail to the retreat house. It's a whole group of women, sponsored by women, ran by women, for women to get sober. Most, you know, the women that go in there, a lot of them are mothers that have lost their kids to, you know, the state due to their addiction. They get their kids back, they get their lives back. It's a really cool place for women in our area to go and get sober. It's kind of like it's kind of like Valley Camp. We've talked about Valley Camp. Valley Camp is for men, kind of the same thing. But very grateful for that program and that place for the women in this area, because a lot of them wouldn't have anywhere to go without it. So,
and we'll list some contact information in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
I really, you know, I don't know how often we hear it, but it's definitely a thing where we hear people with abuse.
Yeah.
Growing up, who, you know, eventually turn to drugs and alcohol to deal with that, and Melissa was no different. You know, to hear her journey with that, and even getting to a place with that where she, you know, didn't hold on or harbor anger or hate towards that individual, just, I think, is a true testament to the growth that she has taken on as a result of recovery. And I really appreciate her kind of talking specifically about all that she has gained, because our stories are very similar in the things that had happened to us and the things that we did while under the influence, or while living in the disease, or under the obsession. But when we talk about the things that we have learned and just what we have gained as a result of getting sober, it's good to let those who can identify with those bad parts of our story know that there is hope.
Yeah. There's two sides to this coin.
That's right.
There's what it used to be like and what it's like now.
Yeah.
For sure. And so grateful for what it's like now. Excuse me. Not just for Melissa or myself, but for so many people that have been fortunate enough to find the message of recovery and be able to get into some form of recovery, some form of treatment, some type of sobriety, and stop harming ourselves by trying to heal ourselves through negative fucking actions like that, you know. Healing is so dope, and I'm so grateful to be part of such a huge community of people that are healing and putting that healing energy out to, you know, sometimes I'm the suffering addict and you guys are there for me, you know. Just because we're sober doesn't always necessarily mean we're not the one that is suffering in the room. So, you know, we just continue to do this stuff, continue to look at what we've learned and identify with one another and support one another and cheer on one another, because we fight a disease that is generally self-imposed punishment, right? Like we do this to ourselves through our thinking, and we're able to learn tools and coping skills that help us stay away from destroying our lives and the lives of the people around us, trying to make ourselves feel better. It's kind of neat. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Melissa's story was no different. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations on your raise. And
yeah, and I appreciated that too. You know, she talked about how she has this new work ethic now, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, congratulations. You earned it. You know,
for sure.
As you know. But
yeah.
Good
so
show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Thank you, Cameron, for being here.
We have a good, solid fan base. We love you guys. We're coming back to this weekly schedule soon enough. But for now, we're working on new things, and we appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you. And with that, we will see you on the other side.
You are worth the
Woohoo.
The Other Side of Hell is a do-it-yourself podcast. For more information, recovery resources, and contact info, check out our website at theothersideofhellpodcast.com. You can help us spread our message by liking and subscribing, giving us a follow, or a 5-star rating.